What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk here at Worlds 2022. We're diving into our third matchup of the day. Let's meet our teams. It's 100 Thieves on one side of the equation, one of the longest standing rosters in North American history in terms of consecutive days that these 5 players have been together. Across from them, of course, as I said before, our Oyster overlords. Flying Oyster here to represent on the international stage. We'll see what they can get done here against North America's best. But perhaps no one in North America is a bigger Flying Oysters fan than Emily Rand. And while she can't be here with us on the desk today, she sent along some pearls of wisdom. Check it out.
So first of all, I want to start off with their top laner, Rest, who I think is a player that if people have actually watched their games, they're definitely going to be paying attention to because he made such a huge splash. There's an amazing, Gnar 0 for 2 turnaround he had in the finals that I think everyone should watch because it's just such a fun play. He is also known as the BM King for how BM he can be in interviews, his emote spam, his kind of flashiness. So if you really like kind of flashy, outgoing kind of showmanship, then you're gonna love Rust because he's really, really fun. He's also one of the reasons why their veteran jungler Gemini cited this as he wanted to continue playing competitively at all. This is actually likely Gemini's last year. He's been in the LMS/PCS since 2016. He's kind of been a staple jungler of the region since his debut. And this is likely his last year of competitive play. Like I said, Shunn is their AD carry, and I think he's kind of the hotshot rookie of the team, right? So this is actually the oldest PCS team. You have Mission, who's 27, and Shunn is the ADC that they ended up subbing back in spring. He's known for really wanting to play these aggressive outplay lanes, like these really, like a Draven, like a Kalista. He's really well known for those. He's also well known for getting really hyphy in comms, especially since he is the youngest. And then lastly, Koala is a player that I've actually really enjoyed watching play, especially on engaged supports, since I saw him at 2018 Worlds, I believe, with G-Rex. He has a very large champ pool, but I do think the team operates absolutely the best when he is able to initiate. He has a very good initiation sense, and he named himself Koala because he just thought koalas are cute. So there's a quick overview of, I guess, some memes, some fun facts, and a few gameplay related things of CTBC Flying Oyster. I hope they're able to have a really good showing, and back to you, Dash.
Thank you so much, Emily, for that brilliant breakdown. I hope you're hydrating, resting well, and we'll have you back here soon to break things down on the desk with us. But, I mean, what a roster that this Flying Oyster squad has put together. I love the call out towards the star top laner who's not afraid to trash talk, but then, of course, the young gun. We saw there on the Draven flashing forward in some instances. And so with all of that and then kind of a stable mid laner, the most experienced, most veteran on the team, I think this is someone you should not overlook here, Dag.
Yeah, I'm super excited for Flying Oysters. Like, this is a team that domestically would just get a ton of strength through their laning phases, like CSDs pretty much across the board, and they'd lend a lot of that in towards, hey, we're going to look for fights, we're going to stack up, and their late game team fighting was where they kind of got to show off a little bit as well. So I think this is a roster, especially when you look at some of the veterancy between like Koala, Gemini, and Mission that we've all seen at Worlds before. This is where I'll be keeping my eyes on.
Now, of course, if we flip back to the other side of the coin here, as we look at 100 Thieves, interestingly, while they are the second seed out of our region, most of the focus for people on teams when they think about the LCS this year has been Cloud9 and Evil Geniuses, and somehow 100 Thieves is getting lost in the shuffle.
I mean, this is one of those teams that just seems to kind of perennially get overlooked, right? They won a championship last year. They made back-to-back finals this year. Even the players themselves talking out, people from the org talking out about how they feel that they are often unfairly overlooked, that they feel that they've been snubbed on all pros and MVPs. Abbedagge, to me, was the best performing mid laner in the LCS in the second half of the split, but did not make all-pro whatsoever. This is a team that I do think is performing consistently and performing at a high level, but for whatever reason, people just don't really seem to give them their due. I mean, even you think back to last year, and people talk about this big failure from 100 Thieves at Worlds. Yeah. They were in a group with T1 and EDG, a team that went to semifinals, a team that actually won the whole thing. They did go 3-3. They split games with EDG, so I think, overall, most people would say, hey, that's not that bad.
Yeah, by all accounts, that isn't such a horrible showing at Worlds last year. Just as an attempt to answer the question, or maybe why we seem to be soft on this team at times, I think is because you've kept the same roster and you didn't eclipse your own domestic performances, right? So that idea that, well, this was a championship-winning team in the LCS last year, and somehow they didn't get it done this year, I think has left people feeling a bit soft on them.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of the big fault that I've seen with them coming into the playoffs, right? Was like they had these early games that they could actually try and play through and win through, but I think their late game team fighting kind of let them down as well. I think C9 were very good at getting to the objective first, punishing 100 Thieves every time they went there, and that's why I think coming up against Flying Oysters, they need to tune that up, because if that becomes a little bit stronger, that's where they can actually beat Flying Oysters.
I'll tell you this much, my argument for why 100 Thieves should not be counted out here, though, is in fact playing into that same thing, the idea that they have been near the top 3 splits in a row, and to what that tells to me is you can change the meta on this squad, and they're always going to be competitive. So for me, walking into the Worlds tournament with that is actually a big positive.
Absolutely, and I do think one of the ways in potentially here is through mid lane. You know, Mission has been very consistent for Flying Oyster, but one of the concerns is champion pool is fairly limited, right? Throughout playoffs, they actually had to ban Ahri in 100% of their games. They banned Sylas almost every single game as well. He's not as comfortable on a lot of those picks. He was mostly playing exclusively Azir, Viktor, and Talia. He had 1 game of Syndra throughout playoffs, so that could be a way in for 100 Thieves to try to focus him in pick bans. Abbedagge is comfortable on the melee picks.
Yeah, and I think as well, when we look at Flying Oysters, they would work a lot through, hey, our lanes have advantages, now we call in Gemini, now we call in Gemini to help out, specifically for Mission in that mid lane. And I think that's where I'm curious to see what happens when they don't have those advantages, because it's get advantage, then jungle, versus jungle, give advantage. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see how they adjust against some of our top teams.
Now, while we talk about how both us and maybe the community at large has overlooked 100 Thieves, let's go straight to a word from Closer as he talks about what it's been like to be overlooked by many.
People don't really see from outside what we are capable of. I feel like every season is like the same story. Oh, 100 Thieves doesn't look good. Power rankings, they put us down. I'm talking to you guys. That's true. And then when we make it to finals and we win the whole thing, like people forget easily.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Happy to rib all my analysts on their preseason expectations. Fun fact, by the way, as we kind of return to the matchup, Flying Oyster, how they got their name, because most people are like, where the heck does a name like this come from, right? So the name comes from their sponsor, CTBC Bank's slogan. The slogan is "We Are Family," but it happens that in Chinese, the word family has a similar pronunciation to Flying Oyster. And so that's where the team name came from. I'm not going to attempt to say it myself. If you want to go for it,
Fei Muli.
There you go. There it is. Pretty fun.
Actually, that is really cool.
So both of these teams, though, I think one thing we can kind of come back to, and it keys off of your listing of mid lane champions, there's like, we're happy to play for late. So where the first 2 games, there was one team that definitely felt like there was time pressure to get something done and build a lead. I wonder if this game is going to go into a little bit more of a steady state from the early portions.
Well, we're obviously going to have a lot of that dictated by the draft, you know, but I do think that's for sure 100 Thieves style. I think it's for sure CFO style as well. You know, when I think about 100 Thieves, traditionally, when they are proactive early, it's through moves made by Closer, or it's made by pre-set up bot lane dives, right? So if they're going to be active, it's going to be through those kind of 2 mechanisms. But largely, you know, there are a team that's comfortable to go late and really look to team fight.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of going to be similar style for CFO, right? The way they like to play is, hey, we'll get these advantages through strong laners like Rest, like when you look at Shunn in that bot side as well, and then use that to set up for Mission in those later fights, as you said, in these big late game control mages like the Talia and the Viktor. So I think this is going to be the exact same story.
All right, time for game number 3 of the World Championship group stage here as we head down to the stage to meet Flying Oyster and 100 Thieves.
I have the great privilege of introducing a brand new team to the international stage here in New York. They took the PCS by storm, winning 4 series in a row. I present to you CTBC Flying Oyster. Opponents and runners-up to the North American title, the 2nd seed from the LCS, your 100 Thieves! 2022 group stage continues. Make some noise! And welcome back to the caster desk, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else. Vidias, Koblar, and Quickshot bringing you the third and final game for our trio. 100 Thieves taking on the Flying Oysters. And of course, 400 Thieves, I love in particular hearing from Abbedagge talking a little bit about how they have been undervalued, underestimated at times. They made that finals. You would still assume that they are going to be the favorite in this match, Kobe.
Oh, I certainly hope so. Definitely pulling for him here. As far as the Champions Queue angle for this, for the most up-to-date info on these players, Gemini and Rest have actually been smashing a ton of games with chock full of Worlds players. Gemini still playing the Poppy extremely effectively, going for a lot of ganks even after the nerf to Poppy's jungle clear on the damage, and even playing some of the jungle carries, which he did not do that much during summer for the Oysters. Very, very curious to see, because the two big players on the side of 100 Thieves for all of summer were also Ssumday and Crawl Closer. Top and jungle, I think, is going to be incredibly important for this game.
All right, now, Vidias, talk to me a little bit about the expectations and maybe some of the things that we've also learned from the previous two games. Have we seen any trends? It's obviously a small number, but differences from what we've seen in play-ins. Has already straight out the gate, Yumi and Caitlyn banned away.
So I think that there are some rules that you can take from historic Worlds performances and apply them to right now. If you believe that you are better than your opposition, scaling is a very good thing. If you believe that your opposition is, well, better than you, you have to be willing to go toe-to-toe with them in the early game. Because as Darmon demonstrated, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. Whereas if you cannot contest them in the early game, Fnatic demonstrated that they will run you down in the late game. The question is, how do both of these teams see each other?
And with a Sylas and Seraphine ban from the side of the Oyster, I feel like that it really increases the priority on the Azir. Definitely a big one for them. Mission plays so many control mages here. They're almost always going to have him on a scaling AP threat for their team fights. Also starts you thinking about the Senna angles even, trying to deny the Senna from 100 Thieves. That was a really big one for them during the regular season too.
Aatrox finds his way through the bans this time round, locked in for Rest in that top lane. 4 games played this summer, undefeated across all of them, and our first to the group stage in New York.
The cheeky bellwether for the respect shown towards the Mad Lions, with Closer's famous Lee Sin being hovered right now. This was something domestically he found a lot of success on, but he is just teasing us for the time being as they lock in the MissFortune for the bot side of the
I'm getting scared, fellas. I'm getting flashbacks already to the Cloud9 draft when MissFortune and Sejuani locked in first 2 here. 400 Thieves. We'll see if they fare better with it. On the side of CFO, locked in immediately here. Gemini has gone back to over and over the Viego. It does give you that good dueling. Still sticking to this champion even after the nerfs. And Kai'Sa pairing that with it for the dive composition possibilities here, trying to follow up.
Well, this will be Shunn's first Kai'Sa, but for Gemini on the Viego, his most played champion throughout the course of summer by 3. 11-8-5. Viego, Wukong, Lee Sin. So a lot of comfort. I want to see how it shapes up in the rest of the draft as well.
A lot of hovers coming in from 100 Thieves right now. Question is, what direction will they go in? He wants to answer the Aatrox with the Fiora. Ssumday, he had an impressive regular season. Debatable how strong he was during the playoffs, but still a player you have to respect. And he is saying that he is willing to go toe-to-toe with Rest, known as the BM King domestically.
Yeah, and Rest has definitely been a monster on the Aatrox as well, so we'll see if this Fiora counter pick actually finds any traction. It is theoretically really good counter pick into it with the riposte, with the refund there on the Qs as well. As we dip into support bans here, trying to deny Kai'Sa some of those common lane partners as well as more dive options. Immediately, 100 Thieves ban away that Nautilus, one of the go-to pairings.
Look at this, Leona, Nautilus. Wouldn't be surprised to see Amumu being removed from the side of the Flying Oysters. The question is, once you narrow this pull down enough, what direction do you then go? Because when you think about engaged supports, do you then edge towards things like the Braum? I think Braum could be good when you look at what 100 Thieves have been drafting, and Oysters could try and limit. But do you really want to put Kai'Sa, Braum as your bot lane? I feel like the options that you have to pair up with your AD carry is now becoming very, very narrow.
Yeah, that's why I like these bans here from 100 Thieves. Whittling down on Koala. Champ pool here is even when Enchanters were at their prime, he definitely was very, very heavy-handed towards the engaged supports and really trying to split up that Kai'Sa. Renata is available. Braum is also available. You could still go things like Rakan. Amumu's taken away by 100 Thieves. The classic combination with MissFortune. The curse of the sad bullet time. Rell after those buffs. The other all in there. They pick up the Rell and they get that control mage that you know Mission wants.
Okay, so the Flying Oysters have a little bit of a dive comp. They have very strong team fighting overall, with Rell being the primary engage, but then ultimately great backline access with the Viego and the Kai'Sa, with your typical scaling control mage. 100 Thieves right now exploring what direction they want to go, because you talk about team fighting with the dive from CFO, but 100 Thieves have just overall a lot of crowd control, a lot of front-to-back threat, and then also a lot of backline access with the Akali locked in for Abbedagge.
16 games played on Akali for Abbedagge, 12 of those victories. Very comfortable on the pick. Closer will round out that composition with the Sejuani. I was hoping for the least and praying for it. I think hopefully it will come out, because we zoom out. What do you make of the 100 Thieves team composition?
One of the biggest things when you pick a Sejuani is you want melee solo laners to pair with, so got really good pairings there with Ssumday and Abbedagge. Both locking in these melee champs that can stack up the stun really quickly. Abbedagge, the assassin here in mid lane, looking to scale up to level 6, and then boom, kill pressure, roam around, try and capitalize on it.
You can feel the electricity in the room as soon as 100 Thieves not only locked in Akali, but those Thundersticks start coming together. The second NA team on stage here at the Hulu Theater, and 100 Thieves looking to pick up the first win for NA at Worlds.
And I think even though they have some similar elements to the Cloud9 comp, it's much easier to play these champions versus the Flying Oyster lineup, because there is no giant long Maokai ultimate coming at you to stop your MissFortune channel. There's no Ornn ultimate that you have to deal with. There's no Renata, giant sweeping crowd control things for them to have to work around.
For me, I think the mid lane matchup is where I'll be keeping my eyes in the early game, because Abbedagge going for the Akali, this is I'm not going to say a disrespectful pick, but it's not an easy one to play in this matchup. Viktor can be hyper oppressive in the 1v1, and Mission, he is very comfortable on the champion, so it's going to be a big test for both these mid laners to showcase what they're capable of in their first game here at Worlds.
The Flying Oysters picked up gold leads in 28 of their 35 games from the PCS at the 14-minute mark. Many of those were significant gold leads, an average of 1,800. I want to see if they can do the same thing on the international stage against 100 Thieves, the #1 seed from the PCS, coming up against the #2 seed from the LCS, and New York erupts with a classic USA chant. Kobe, let's turn our attention to these opening minutes, whether or not Closer will be closed in on by Gemini and this Viego.
Yeah, a lot of defensive warding opening up here for 100 Thieves. 2 wards dropped here in the river very early on. Then you get the recall there for huhi, immediately switching over to the sweeper already for Amumu, and positioning a little bit aggressively here.
Right now, it looks like they're trying to cover Closer's blue buff. Nothing too aggressive going to come out from CFO, though. They're going to posture up towards the bot side of the lane. Gemini and Rest going to be securing the top side, which means that both junglers going to be going in opposite directions, as Closers are going to look to path towards the Fiora. I don't expect him to threaten any dives early on, but I think primarily his goal will be to cover Ssumday. Remember, in this early lane matchup, it can be a little bit difficult for the Fiora. Around that level 3 mark is when Aatrox does have some real threat, but then the matchup really starts to scale in the favor of Fiora as the lane goes on.
And again, Sejuani can be very aggressive as a jungle matchup when you have double melee solo laners, so you can even look for those super early ganks to try and get key summoner spells out for the matchup, or even look for those kills. And with the opposite pathing here, bottom side pushing for CFO, as well as Gemini heading over on the Viego, full clearing top to bottom for him.
I'm really interested to see, really every single one of these lanes has high amounts of expected trades and engage potential. The Kai'Sa Rell got jumped on first by Bandage Toss from huhi and FBI, who have instantly backed away just a moment ago. Mid lane for now. Viktor is now under some threat. Gemini will spot out Closer. Mission has been able to step backwards. You see whether or not Closer will be here more than Rest.
I've been spotted! He throws up
The shock face.
The jinx from Arcane as he transitions to the other side. Does mean there is a little bit of lead there for Gemini too. More efficient pathing, not going for the swing towards mid lane. Like we said, you know, fishing for summoner spells. Maybe you could get a little bit aggressive there, even a little bit of a damage trade. But with the timing, Viego already on Raptors, they do get a little bit of a sighting there, and it will just be continued full clears for both of them, opposite sides. Sejuani here, actually, Closer probably going to have to stop off there from Krugs and go pick up Scuttle Crab a little early since he took the detour through mid.
So the matchup's kind of going as expected for the time being. The push from CFO in the mid lane, the push from 100 Thieves up towards top. The one I wasn't entirely sure about was his bot lane, a matchup that we don't get to see very often. Kai'Sa, Rell into MissFortune Amumu. Of course, MF Amumu becoming a lot more prevalent as we've seen in play-ins. But Rell is a champion that we haven't seen a lot of. And Kobe, you and I were talking earlier in the day about how her buffs are actually surprisingly significant. Her engage is now just a flat 13-second cooldown as we see huhi going in once again.
Advantage toss forward. Huhi's now looking for a bit more. Finds it. That's Koala below 200. Flash for flash. Shunn! First blood onto 100 Thieves. Huhi's taken down. He followed it up after being engaged on. And now FP is in trouble. Call for reinforcements. Gemini's trying to find the second kill for the Flying Oysters, and Koala steps forward. Ferromancy crashed down. A kill traded back and forth. At least FBI is on the board.
The first and second blood Oyster right here. Bottom lane just destroyed there for the 100 Thieves. Both of them go down. Minions will be lost as well. FBI goes down as the wave crashes. Huhi's the only one around to be able to pick up the straggling ones here as that one goes into the dirt.
What a fantastic debut for this bot lane. Shunn, the rookie of the team, along with the experienced veteran of Koala, they punish huhi's aggression. They remount on the Koala to then set up the initial pick. He then flashes away, but then huhi, he's overcommitted. The damage from Shunn, the flashing in to secure that kill, and then Gemini's in the perfect position to set up the dive. A great start for CFO.
Yeah, you can tell Shunn immediately there with the positioning. There was no way they were going to back down from that game of support all-in chicken. He follows it up. He gets that auto off. The Kai'Sa passive, massive there. And Gemini, the standout there from Champions Queue, past full clear all the way down on Viego. Easy move for him to come support that big play from the bottom lane, setting it up.
And statistically speaking, from a PCS perspective, Shunn's damage percentage and damage per minute in comparison to the rest of the league was below average. Was not one of the players that really shone in the PCS. So not only is this combo something we haven't seen a huge amount of before, he is popping off in this early game.
But considering how young of a player he is, it's really impressive how mechanically he has stood out within the PCS. He is a player that the region is very excited about and the potential that he's capable of. And to start off your tournament like this kind of matches the expectations that have been put on his shoulders.
Yeah, especially with this team comp. That is greatly going to accelerate the win conditions here for the Flying Oyster. They can go for those dive bomb Kai'Sa plays much earlier. This also is going to allow them to unlock Koala for some of these roams. The Hex Tech flash here picked up for him, so constant aggressive looks now towards bottom lane. They call Gemini again. They clear out the vision for 100 Thieves. They can get the push into full river control for themselves.
And I think for Flying Oyster, if they're able to arrest dragon control from their gold lead, it's twofold. Not only does it help them set up for a win, 100 Thieves have had great dragon control, led the way to many victories, but from the Flying Oysters, they generated gold leads on average 1.8k from the PCS. The early play in bottom lane has accelerated them up 1,000 gold against 100 Thieves, and that dragon is up already. A little bit of a contest in and around the river.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, Ssumday is doing well with the Fiora, constantly pushing this Aatrox in, able to get him under the tower. And Abbedagge on his level 6 power spike here with sword shoes for the Akali, trying to just keep some presence in that river, not to let the bottom lane advantage for Oysters spill over.
Yeah, I mean, so far, everything going very comfortably for CFO. They have the advantage bot, they have the advantage in mid for the time being. And really top lane's doing what he can considering the matchup. We talked about how very early on there are windows where Aatrox can really take advantage of the 1v1, but now with these itemizations, the levels, an advantage for Ssumday, it's going to be much harder for rest. And Cage tries to come through for huhi. Nothing really going to amount to much as Closer is shadowing behind, staying in the fog of war. Will now move into this brush. and then looking for a play to try and get this bot lane back in, or at the very least make sure they can push this wave underneath the tower.
Yeah, such good restraint shown here from CFO bottom lane. Even with the big lead, they know with the positioning, hey, Sejuani probably down here trailing. If Amumu's fishing for this, definitely don't give the play to them. Giant pushing wave. We only have a couple seconds to wait. As long as we don't step up and make some giant ego play, we'll retain this massive advantage.
It's the rule of thumb, Kobe. Never fight into a stack wave, right? It's just, not only
like,
do you have...
why are they going for this?
When not only are there opponents in front of you, but the minions also act as an additional enemy. So very smart, good respect there. But it's not Gemini that's going to start this one off. He's just going to start this one off solo. Closer will be there to match him. But look at the mini-map. We can see both supports heading their way towards the Herald. Huhi, though, has the slight advantage.
Very quick itemization and CS differences, no significant
Hang on a
advantage.
second.
As Ssumday takes a Q to the face and forces Rest to flash once Closer comes in from the flank. This did interrupt the Herald as a minor win, bought enough time for Koala riding that metal horse. Magnet Storm unlocks, and this could be a 3v3 in the top lane.
Yeah, we've got actually a 5v5 possibly brewing with both bottom lanes heading up as well. MissFortune with Strut is a little bit behind, but can walk a bit quicker. Kai'Sa already here. Herald does leash though, so there's a delay on the giant Herald fight.
Both supports are level 6. That crucial ultimate. The primary engages of both teams will be available. And remember, the biggest difference, CFO, they want to try and dive, leverage their intent mobility to get onto the backline, whereas Abbedagge is going to be using his mobility to access that backline himself. Both teams are posturing 5 versus 5 on the map. The Herald, the objective.
He pulls the trigger. He pulls the trigger. 100 Thieves. They're on the Herald.
Look at Koala. Keep your eyes
Flying
on the
Elsters,
Rell.
stepping forward, Magnet Storm, followed up by the Killer Instinct, and Closer Impact with the Glacial Prison does so much to dissuade the engage. It's 100 Thieves that get the kills. Abbedagge's 5-point strike manages to get it and steps back away. The engage was great. The counter was better.
The massive MissFortune ultimate from FBI over the entire CFO team. 100 Thieves, they get the kills and they get the Rift Herald.
I thought that fight was going to go horribly for 100 Thieves because at the start of this, look, keep your eyes on Huhi. He's going to miss his engage, and that's the window that CFO used. The 2-man ultimate, but the riposte is good. Then the flash ultimate from Huhi sets up for the MF ultimate to rip apart CFO. They're forced to disengage, and 100 Thieves not only secure the Herald, but pick up 2 kills.
Yeah, the chase afterwards there too, picking up 1 more for themselves. Koala right back out to the map though, clear out some of that vision. They did not get the bounty on top of Kai'Sa's head, as Shunn was one of the ones able to escape right back through, but no summoner spells or ult left for him.
Look at that damage from FBI's Bullet Storm. The fact that Ssumday was also able to riposte the engage, that CC, instantly became a threat that needed to be made aware of. I missed that in the live. Now, important to note, 100 Thieves are still down 700 gold, but they can use that Rift Herald for a plate gank. Use that to get some control. Also, Ssumday's up 20 CS, 30 CS in that top lane, Kobe.
Yeah, and every lane now is looking at jungle ganks because so many flashes were burned in this. Right now, mid pressure is going to allow the push out for CFO. They'll transition over to Dragon as Closer comes to check.
The window now the 100 Thieves have is the Herald in top lane. You can see that Ssumday does have the push. There's nothing that's going to get in his way if he wants to use it with the Divine Sunderer completed as well. Is he actually going to look to proxy this? No, he's just going to trade a little bit and disengage. I thought that was a good window for him to actually throw this down and really threaten that secure on the top tower, but for the time being, he's going to hold on to it. Will pick up that ward there. Cheeky little deny. But CFO, they will secure their first Drake of the game. Small bonus for them. And the thing we also have to highlight is Shunn sitting at 3-0-0 right now. While that fight did not go in the favor of CFO, he was the only one to pick up a kill, and he's continuing to scale up and become a real threat.
And they did a good job tracking cooldowns as well, playing around. MissFortune doesn't have ult backup for this Dragon fight, so we're going to move in. We'll take it while that is down. They don't have to threat.
That was just beautiful. Closer is going to be able to help out. Wait a minute, but it turned around. How did that turn around? The gravity field stunned them. The gravity field stunned them.
The gravity field locked Abbedagge in place, and they're not done just yet.
Yo, we need a slow-mo on that replay. I was convinced Mission was going to die, and I could not be more wrong.
Mission stands tall in the face of the assassin. Immediately they get the counter and Gemini comes in. Viego, execution damage, bursts down Abbedagge.
Call him Tom Cruise because he pulled off an impossible mission. It didn't deserve that laugh, but thank you, Betty.
I'm kind of hurt. That's how painful it was to listen to that. Mission leveraging his experience there. This is his 5th world appearance. The man stood in the face of execution and held his ground, walked away the victor as his jungler came in to protect him.
Oh my God, it's the 1-2 punch up here.
He didn't realize. Was that intentional? Anyways, let's take a look at the slow-mo. That wasn't intentional. He doesn't do that.
So look at the engage here. It was a clean engage from Abbedagge. Everything lands. He's just waiting for the ultimate, but then he gets rooted up. He gets stunned by Gemini into the root from the gravity field, which means that he gets locked up long enough to allow CFO to secure that kill. Beautiful play from the mid-jungle duo. The synergy coming in clutch.
Gemini's timings have been so good here, working to the lanes that need him. Let's take a look at Closer and huhi. Headed up top though. Ssumday, the winning part for 100 Thieves.
They shall the Rift Herald is not valuable. It is taken out and denied by Gemini as well as Rest. That gold lead is maintained at 1,500 in favor of the Flying Oysters.
Too many things now should be going well for 100 Thieves, but they are just falling apart. 100 Thieves now have their eyes set on the blue buff, but I don't know if this is an objective they can fight.
Right now, Koala steps forward. Ferromancy into the Magnet Storm. Closer can throw out the prison and Pete put Rest in place, but FBI is jumped on by Gemini. So for 1 kill to 100 Thieves, here comes Abbedagge. It's traded for FBI, who steals the Make Array, and the Gemini will be able to use the Heartbreaker and pick up that misfortune. Closes down next. Ssumday and huhi join up with Abbedagge. Rest will pull back. It's a 2,000 gold lead, and the fight goes the way of the Oysters.
The first seed from the PCS has come to play and silence this crowd. What a phenomenal performance from them in the early game. You talked about how domestically they were known for building gold leads. Well, Quickshot, they already find themselves with a 2.2k gold lead.
It's not done just yet. It's now Mission's the target. He's 1, 2, 3 members strong. Gravity field comes up. The riposte is going to deny the stun, and at least 100 Thieves get that kill back. The game is not out of 100 Thieves' hands, but it is starting to fall apart around them.
Exactly. Look at especially the Kai'Sa. Shunn is so fed. This is insane. Gets off solo tower gold in mid lane, in addition to the extra kills afforded to him earlier. This Kai'Sa is out of control. How do we reset this one? We don't even have a keyboard. There we go. All right. It's a massive, massive power spike for him. This means that when Flying Oysters implement the composition that they've set up here, so many CCs to set up for Kai'Sa plays, when he has ult available, flash, and cleanse available, he can dive bomb in, get that kill, and immediately reset.
Flying Oysters so far, managing the skirmishes, sublime. Despite that Rift Herald fight going the way of 100 Thieves, almost every other play thus far has gone the way of Flying Oyster. They picked up first blood, they picked up first dragon, they've picked up the first tower, and it is 30 seconds until the next dragon spawns. Gemini on this Viego as well. Reminder that that was blue side's second pick. He's 2-1-3. Just shy of 100% kill participation, has utilized the champion that he is most well known for out of the PCS to near perfection. And this will be an uncontested Herald, Kobe.
Yeah, certainly will. 100 Thieves, no business fighting that one. You lose so much ground when you lose the mid tower that early on. Allows Flying Oyster. You can see these wards, they're already starting to get in around the objectives as 100 Thieves trying to play the other side. 3-person dive again.
Flash and World Ender available. That's both of them used. Dashing, dodging, ducking, diving. Riposte plus one more lunge does it. Mission completes the teleport, throws a Chaos Storm forward. Closer, huhi, and Ssumday. The hit squad make it out. Now, does Shunn fancy a shot with that Killer Instinct? Not into 3. He backs out. 100 Thieves get the kill and get away.
And it's smart timing to go for that play for 100 Thieves as well. They're trying to play away from this Kai'Sa as much as possible because that is so much of the gold lead of Flying Oyster right now. They get the kill, they get out while Mission is teleporting in and escape this time without a counter.
So now, 100 Thieves going to leverage their numbers advantage to start off the break. CFO, they're going to be forced to just give this one up. You can see blue pings coming down on the bot lane tower. They have their eyes set on an objective that they can look to trade it for, but they don't have information as to where 100 Thieves are right now. They know that Abbedagge is top, and they will catch the MissFortune in mid, which will give them this window. Over the wall, the Rell will go. and they'll get a little bit more deep vision to help offer protection for Mission as he secures that objective, which means that another tower will go into their back pocket. But the gold lead's still very sizable for CFO.
I wish to throw a huge shout out to our stats team who have helped us throughout this event, and a little bit of hopium to everyone in New York City, to every LCS fan out there. 6 out of the Flying Oysters' 10 losses. This was a team that had a gold lead at 14 minutes. And if we look at their gold graphs, as we have done, there are a lot of nosedives from the top of Mount Everest in those losses columns. So for the Flying Oysters, have they been able to clean up how they close games out? And for 100 Thieves, their team composition can still fight back. They just cannot fall further behind. Because when you start getting hit with that wallet, it gets so much harder. This looks to be another kill. Rest is thrown down the ultimate, but 2 members of 100 Thieves jumping, flashing forward. The stun comes out. Gemini arrives. He's not going to be able to find the route just yet. Ssumday will get killed. And Koala won't find one. 1-for-1 trades.
Ooh, Ssumday commits under the tower there to finish off that kill, allowing, with these Hex Gates especially, CFO to come. They pick up the counter one. That was the one winning lane for 100 Thieves, has been the Fiora, has been Ssumday, has been their power point. And now with the 1-for-1 trade, that's actually good for CFO as they're able to capitalize on an objective for themselves in the aftermath.
And just look at how much Mission is benefiting on the map. The veteran for this roster, 200 CS at 18 minutes, just short of 19 minutes. He's now going to secure another tower, but they go in on him on isolated.
Right now, it's just Death Brush all day. The strategy for 100 Thieves. Huhi goes in the field, out the field, right back in. Teleport's committed. FBI makes it rain. He's got bullet time available, but needs them to get locked down. Huhi, no ultimate, no flash, no range. Teleport does nothing. And Flying Oysters get out.
It was Rest who TP'd to the bot lane to catch that wave, and Ssumday TP'd into the fight. That could have been a massive team fight for 100 Thieves, leveraging their numbers advantage and the fact that Mission just flashed, but they couldn't quite lock down CFO as they were disengaging. So they're able to get away, continue to maintain this gold lead, and 100 Thieves don't get anything off the back.
Yeah, it's a 2-person surprise on Mission, but the 2 people are 2 tanks. Sejuani and Amumu not exactly going to have enough burst to finish off the kill. Now they open up a window, they are unable to get any actual value out of it. CFO retain their gold lead, and they retain the map pressure here, constantly pushing out. They have still yet to drop a tower to 100 Thieves, allows them much better use of these Hex Gates. You can immediately reset back out onto the map, get to these plays that much quicker, get to those rotations so you're not dropping those extra resources.
CFO right now just moving into 100 Thieves jungle. They have their eyes on Ssumday, but they realize that he's too far away. They're not going to overcommit to that play. Instead, they're just going to drop a bit of vision. You can slowly start to see the vision getting deeper and deeper. 100 Thieves losing more and more control over the map. They do have control over the Baron for the time being. They're also going to have control over this mid-wave, but one of the weaknesses of this composition is their siege and a straight front to back. When Mission is there, the wave clear is too strong, and 100 Thieves can't risk getting close to that tower.
Yeah, I think CFO right now on some big power spikes looking for that dive bomb play. They've invested pretty heavily into flat penetration. You have the Collector for Kai'Sa for the burst damage executions, and the Shadow Flame also just now done for Mission. Big 2-item power spikes for both of the main carries here. So 100 Thieves have to be a little bit careful with what they're toying with.
Vedius, when I look ahead, a minute to the next Drake, Hextech, Soul is what we're playing for. Baron is open and available. 100 Thieves so far tried to find those picks and haven't been as successful as they would hope. You anticipate they fancy themselves a shot at a straight head-to-head team fight? Are they still looking for picks? How do they come back into this game as they are down 3,500 gold?
I would say that 100 Thieves can team fight, and it's not like that it's weakened by any means, because you still have like Amumu NF, Akali with a good flank can also find ways in, but strictly speaking on paper, as Mission face checks the Akali, she missed everything.
Shuriken doesn't manage to connect. Abbedagge will definitely want to fix that for the next engage.
I think 100% of the chance of winning a team fight for 100 Thieves is predicated on hitting an Amumu ultimate to lock people in place for MF. If they don't hit that, they're going to lose.
And I think that when you kind of strictly look at CFO's comp, it's just so much easier to play when it comes to the fights. The TP is now coming in, the Dragon is up in 7 seconds. It is CFO that have control of the mid-wave, and actually they're conceding the bottom river right now. They're moving up towards the Baron.
Look at the vision on the minimap, Vedius. All of that vision from 100 Thieves cleared out. Flying Oyster, thank you from our observers. The engage comes out from Koala and Shunn. That's a dead huhi. Curse of the Sad Mummy not available And the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden has been turned into a library as the LCS fans, 100 Thieves, are being bullied, beaten, and bashed around the rift. The dragon is up, it's been started, it's uncontested.
Great use of those control wards by CFO. 3 control wards, they just black out the map around Baron, waiting in the side brush, and immediately they jump on that hope for 100 Thieves. They take out the Amumu, then they take out that possible CC to set up MissFortune ultimate. Really nicely done from them. Guarantees them the objective afterwards.
Shunn, the young player, the newest addition to this roster at the beginning of the year, is right now 5-0-0 in his very first international game. What a stand-up performance from him, but a lot of it is being set up by his team, and you can see just beautiful commitment from the bot lane. Koala with the engage, the ultimate to follow it from Shunn, and they just melt this Amumu off the map. Beautiful play overall from CFO as they secure the dragon and now have their eyes set on a potential Baron.
Right now, the pace of the game is being dictated by the Flying Oyster. And 100 Thieves will once again find themselves a pick. Now, this is great. This is exactly what the 100 Thieves need. And their composition is by no means at a point that at 3K, they cannot claw it back. It's important. Stop conceding gold. Stop conceding
Teleporting
gold.
in.
Do not concede this Baron. Don't let it get stolen.
Okay,
You
huhi.
are the Thieves.
Huhi's looking for a flank opportunity, but he won't be able to find it. Will be spotted out by Mission. Abbedagge hang on the flank, the engage from Closer.
Oh, the double bluff was great, but it doesn't set up the kill. Abbedagge forced to run for his life now. Baron's been interrupted. Rest is trying to end 100 Thieves' world. There is too much damage, too much chase, and Flying Oyster kill 100 Thieves.
A triple kill for Shunn. That is 100 Thieves wiped off the map, and that will be the Baron secured for the Flying Oysters.
Shunn is legendary! 8 kills for the Kai'Sa now. So insanely fed, and the Flying Oysters with Baron are gonna leave their mark. Here's another look at the setup. Closer goes out, hits the Sejuani ultimate, but as they go for the engage, Rest just comes in, the Aatrox, a force on the front line, trying to chase down with the power of that Viktor ultimate, flashing in there for the double knock-up, insane follow-up.
And that is the dive that we were talking about. The moment that Rest commits onto the fight, the Viego ultimate is right next to him, the Kai'Sa ultimate is right next to him, and it's not a single member going in, it is all 3 damaged threats diving onto the back line, and Ssumday wasn't even in the fight. And this is why we were saying strictly from the front to back, CFO have the advantage in the 5v5.
7,500 gold lead, and help me if this is not the right way to frame it, but it feels to me like 100 Thieves under pressure, falling a little bit behind early, are just not finding the counter engages. They are being caught out. Frankly, they're being pushed around the map by the Flying Oysters. I want to give everyone a heads up that PCS versus LCS all time is 4 wins to the LCS, 3 wins to the PCS. Right now, 100 Thieves is on the verge of dropping a game to the Flying Oysters, who make their World Championship debut. Baron, power plays, powered up by that Red Bull, pushing this bottom lane. This is the 5th tower secured uncontested, and it is looking more and more difficult because Flying Oysters engage is just so powerful.
They're on the doors of the base of 100 Thieves. They're being pushed to the brink. They're gonna need a miracle fight to be able to bounce back in this one. The gold seems insurmountable, and CFO have done a fantastic job of leveraging their leads to suffocate their opposition.
Kai'Sa almost has Infinity Edge, and we're looking at 2 items on MissFortune here. I cannot get over the massive advantage of Shunn. This is going to be so dangerous for 100 Thieves. Everything standing here, trying to defend inhibitors.
Oh man, 800 plus 40 CS. The Baron empowered minions are starting to clear out. And of course, because of that Baron buff, they're so much more difficult to be cleared. Abbedagge and Closer looking for an opportunity. They have to hit their skill shots. They have to do it again and again to make back this goal deficit.
4,000 Red Bull Baron power play in the favor of CFO right now. They've secured the first base tower. They're looking for the first inhibitor. Rest is going to clear out that mid wave as a new one joins the fray. CFO likely not going to try and end the game right now. The dragon spawns in about 35 seconds, and after securing this tower, I expect them to disengage.
I think as soon as that cleanse comes up for Shunn, there's 0 chance that 100 Thieves could be able to win a team fight anyways. With that thing up, even with the Amumu flash in, trying to land an ultimate, their dream scenario becomes non-existent. And there's the Infinity Edge for Shunn. He resets. It's a 4-item Kai'Sa to the 2-item MissFortune. Not to mention the massive powerhouse level 16 spike for Viktor mission in mid lane, also up an item.
And I think expectations were that this is not how this game would go.
No.
Second seed from the LCS, often overlooked as a roster. I think expectations were high, especially when you look at that top side of the map. Going up against the PCS, a region that over the last few years internationally has not looked great, especially during the group stages of World. To come in with this level of performance, to be winning out straight up in the 2 versus 2, for Gemini to be in the right place at the right time, pretty consistently throughout the early game, this is a performance that is going to shake heads and potentially shake up this group.
And a roster that shook up the PCS. They won 4 best of series back-to-back-to-back, surprising everybody. They make their international debut. And even more importantly, the player that maybe didn't have the largest impact regionally, Shunn, is the guy that's leading the charge today. New look, new duo in this bottom lane, and the Flying Oysters once again stepping forward. Don't forget that they're in the same group as Gen G, and Royal never give up. It's always going to be a difficult group to compete in. And Flying Oysters, they've got themselves 3 dragons. It's still that 10k gold lead, super minions in the bottom lane, and they are just grouped up pushing top.
Here comes the pain train. CFO have arrived. The secondary tower is very dangerous to fight at for 100 Thieves. I think they should not.
Oh, Ssumday, the riposte keeps him up and alive. We'll be able to slow down further chase. Koala not getting that Magnet Storm off, potentially saving some lives. 6 tower deficit. Damn, those Hex Gates are loud. As 100 Thieves are now defending. Minions in the middle lane, they've fended off at least half of this inhibitor timer, but it's a minute to Baron, 3.5 to Sol.
Exactly that quick shot. That'll be the next main objective on the map. 100 Thieves are going to have to try and contest the Baron. If they can steal it away, they can buy more time. There's windows of opportunity for them to bounce back into this game.
All right, fellas, keep pumping me full of the hopium. I need a hit now, like really bad.
I mean, I think so much of this is like, Abbedagge is getting to a point where he, in theory, can execute Shunn. The question is, will he actually be able to do it? Because the amount of mobility that he has at his disposal, the amount of damage that he has, there's a real world
look at this
where Shunn is the executor.
I always got to stopwatch.
Okay, never mind. It's no longer possible to execute Shunn.
For 100 Thieves, they are hoping and looking for Flying Oysters to maybe overstep. Look at the vision. It is pretty deep right now. They're starting to push it in this northern quadrant. The Dragon River is empty as we're still 3 minutes away. Very, very clear. Flying Oysters, they're setting up for Baron. They're pushing the waves. They're pulling the vision down. Now they're going to back out and wait for that to spawn in a few seconds' time.
They've been grinding away, too. Nice to see the hard work rewarded here for the Flying Oyster. Baron about to spawn, and once again, they've done a very good job with the fundamentals. Sweep clean all the vision here for 100 Thieves. Make them face check into you, into your massive advantage.
Oh,
This is melting.
Baron steal hope.
Hope. Is it going to happen? Back away. Flying Oysters have been disciplined most of this game. They have not overextended.
Look at the base.
Consistently, super minions are inside the base. Vader, you called it right.
CFO, they know that they have a pressure point in the bot lane. They know that their top wave is pushing as well. CFO are just playing the map.
100 Thieves in another do or die situation. The pressure cannot be higher. 2,000 hit points into the pit. It's stolen. LCS steals the Baron. But is it enough to steal the game? Shunn and Gemini are chasing inside the mist. And just like that, 3 members down. Abbedagge gets at least 1 back. Rest is continuing to chase. Shunn manages to find another. Flying Oysters are inside the base. 100 Thieves steal Baron, but CFO secure the game.
It's 10 kills for Shunn and a Nexus in their eyes. CFO will come out swinging in Game 1 at Worlds.
Formula! Flying Oysters dominate, destroy, and decimate 100 Thieves.
Well played, Flying Oyster, my goodness. Massive advantages for the carries on this team. The only way going 100 Thieves was top lane with the counter pick with the Fiora. Viktor, giant leads there for mission. Huge CS for himself. Gemini able to get in place for exactly what the lanes needed. The counter gank on mid, supporting the bottom side there, getting Shunn fed in the first place, and then Shunn being able to run away with that lead he got.
It was an impressive game. The way in which that they attacked the bot lane, just overall, the way they played the map as well, and just Gemini being in all the right places at the right time. It felt like that they just got a lot of what they're already very comfortable on. It felt like that they just came into this tournament saying, we're not going to do anything too crazy, we're just going to stick to what we know, and it worked out beautifully for them. Getting a big win over 100 Thieves, you think about this group and you think about how many people expected to be super top heavy. Already now in day one, the Flying Oysters have come in and said, we're here, we're ready to play, and we can't afford to be underestimated.
Yeah, the confidence on the bottom side with the Rell Kai'Sa all in, not backing down from the Amumu there, immediately positioning up, getting that last auto win, getting that kill, and having Gemini come over for the dive there. Really big advantage early. They opened up by playing with huge confidence.
And all credit to the Flying Oysters, proactive, on the front foot, in the face of 100 Thieves. I did feel that multiple members of 100 Thieves missing crucial skill shots, feeling that pressure. When you're on that back foot and defensive, you cannot afford to make mistakes. And I think crucially for Flying Oysters, they forced errors out of 100 Thieves, always stepping into the darkness, always challenging them. 100 Thieves had no answer.
Like, I will say that a lot of pressure had to be on Abbedagge's shoulders when you're picking a champion like Akali, and he did not impress me in this game. Like, 100 Thieves, I think expectations were high. They wanted to prove that they were able to compete. And a game like this is going to frustrate them. And I imagine that they're going to look to bounce back. Remember last year, they did end up going 3-3, but that wasn't enough to get out of the group stages. And now after a loss here, it's only going to add to the pressure as only stronger opponents fight them in the future.
There's no doubt about that. I also want to give a little bit of a shout out to the crowd here in New York. It was a tough game to watch, and throughout the course of that meal, the room was quiet, but New York City, thank you so much for cheering for the Flying Oysters. The respect was amazing, and it was a hard cheer for the crowd. We're halfway through the first day of games. There's already been surprises and shocks. I think there was a lot of damage in that game, though. The trend of where is the damage no longer around. Oh, man. Production throwing up the post-game breakdown here. This is Vedius, ultimately, slow and steady grind up to the lead.
Mission really pulling a lot of weight here on the Viktor, too. I mean, he has had an 8-year career here for himself and still putting up big numbers like this on the world stage. I think it's incredibly impressive to have that longevity.
I would say he was very much the unsung hero in this game, right? Doing a lot without really being the focal point, Shunn really being the benefactor of all those kills, allowing the young rookie to be able to shine. It's like, it's one of the reasons when you talk about that stat, you know, the damage percentages, you could see Shunn's impact, but it was Mission that was ultimately doing all of the damage.
100%. By the way, I do have to give a shout out to Emily Rand, who is unfortunately not here. I hope you get well soon. As probably the loudest voice on the Flying Oyster fan base on the broadcast side of things, I'm really intrigued to hear how you feel about this game, because you have split allegiances, young lady. If you are hungry for more Worlds content, we're going to move on, and you miss Emily Rand as much as we do, you can check out Rift Reactions, hosted by Emily and Travis Gafford over on Spotify. A new episode dropped this past Wednesday. Go give it a listen. I think you have some time just for the interview. Go.
No, let's get to the interview immediately.
Is it ready? It's ready? We're going to find out. Anyway, Shocks, over to you. Verizon post-game interview.
Indeed, Iris is just discussing with the rest here because we prepared before getting into it. First up, congratulations and an applause from the crowd for Flying Oyster. So, first question, unbelievable start here, and you got a huge advantage very early into the game. Why do you think you were able to amount such a big advantage over 100 Thieves?
首先，恭喜你们拿下了你们队伍的一个开门红。想问一下，在这场比赛当中，你们是如何在前期拿到一个这么大的一个优势，并且终结比赛的呢？
我们下路对线打得好，就我们下路对线拿出很大的优势，然后团战中野的配合很好，主要我这把上路在扛压。 所以没什么玩到。
So I think I would definitely give the credit to the bot laners. They had a really strong early game, and we had an advantage from and support from there, and we synergized with each other really well. I kind of just play my lanes in the top lane, so I would give the credit to my teammates.
Yes, they did very well. Now, a little birdie told me that you are sometimes referred to as the BM King because in interviews, sometimes you like to say some spicy things. So is there anything you'd like to say about either 100 Thieves or the rest of your group with Gen.G and RNG?
因为其实好像你有一个比较出名的小称号叫边王嘛，然后就是说讲话可能比较直接，比较的有火药味。 那有没有什么想对100T 说的，以及说在队内组内的一些队伍的话，有没有什么想对他们说的呢？
我们第一场比赛赢下了100T，所以我们接下来还再赢一场，我们会2-0他们。
So we won against 100 Thieves right here. So definitely we'll 2-0 them in the upcoming matchups.
Love that. Now, of course, you are the only PCS team representing the PCS in the main event. What are your general feelings about the strength of this group and how far you can get in the World Championship?
因为其实对于目前的一个赛段来讲，你们是唯一一支正在正赛阶段留下来的一支 PCS 队伍嘛，所以说你对你们这样的一个分组，包括说你的出现的一个几率是怎么看待的呢？
几率可能还挺有机会的，因为还挺有机会的。接着还要打中韩队伍 LCK 跟 LPL 队伍，还要打 LCK 和 LPL 的队伍。感觉是有机会赢下一场。
So I would say we definitely stand a chance to win against the other teams in our group, but we still have to win the matchups against LCK and an LPL team to see if we really can advance to the next stage.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Rest. The first victory here for Flying Oyster. Thank you to Iris as well. And we'll head over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you so much, Shox. Flying Oyster smashing 100 Thieves for a victory to kick off the group stage. And I know Trevor was saying, that Emily Rand's probably the biggest Flying Oyster fan on the broadcast. Well, if she is, I tell you who number 2 and number 3 are. Myself and Dagda. Our 90-50-10s, our 10%s were both about this squad, and so far they're doing work to help those come true.
We are one step closer to getting that world domination you're hoping for. But honestly, it was great. I mean, Shunn starts off with 2 quick kills on the bot side, and once this has started to go over, this is where I really started to get worried for 100 Thieves, because they are playing a composition that wants to try and play it through side lanes. But when Shunn and that team fighting is starting to come online for Flying Oyster already, this is where it becomes a disaster. They can start to stack dragons, they can then force 100 Thieves to play these fights, but they did have a couple of good fights for 100 Thieves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, this was a great bullet time, you know, helping to actually turn that one around. Both NA teams that have played today played pretty similar drafts, both going for Fiora, both going for MF, both going for Sejuani, right? It is kind of a similar principle here. Yes, there's the changes in the LeBlanc and the Akali, but it does seem like our teams have a similar read on the meta, but it's very difficult to execute on these types of compositions. And when you are playing something like Fiora, if your bot side is doing poorly, you don't actually get time to open up the map and really extend the advantages that you want through those side lane. It takes a really long time to really create advantages there. Now, 100 Thieves did try their best to have some 3-man plays towards side lanes to try to push Ssumday forward in this game, but you know, Mission was doing great in mid lane, Shunn was incredible in the bot lane, and CFO was just pushing the pace of the game so much faster than 100 Thieves could really keep up with.
And that's where it became a really big issue for them, because as the game went on, they would have liked to try and set up for these sort of flanks, so you get Akali, Fiora into the back line, but because Mission had full control on side lanes, it was constantly pushing them in, having support from CFO. It made it very difficult then for 100 Thieves to have these fights until we got to this last one where Rest, I mean, take a bow. That was disgusting.
Yeah, your boy Aatrox back in the lineup, just pressing forward throughout that fight, sets up perfectly for the Kai'Sa ultimate. Triple kill coming through. I believe following that first Baron play, Shunn was 8-0-0 on Kai'Sa. You can't approach that anymore, and sure, we'll take it back a little bit by getting a Baron steal, but it's a trade-off for nobody wants. Baron for the base.
And I think 100 Thieves did a decent job in the mid game of trying to find moments where they could punish Flying Oyster, right? You saw them often trying to go towards Mission in that side lane where they're like, okay, Mission slightly overextended, let's see if you can overload one side of the map, especially when CFO aren't really in a position to answer back in the cross map, but it just wasn't enough. You mean, you can see there, the 2 big team fighters in the Viktor and the Kai'Sa were just doing so much work when it got to those late game fights.
I'm just so interested to see, you know, if people are going to allow Mission to continue playing towards comfort. You know, I talked about it, Viktor, Azir, Talia, those are his big 3 that he's so comfortable on, that he really excelled on in the playoffs. They were willing to get that over, and he killed them for it. You know, yes, Shunn is the one picking up so many of these kills, but it's Mission who's doing the brunt of the damage, who's really playing well, I think, throughout the mid and late stages of the game. And on this Viktor, he looked absolutely in his comfort zone. Like, he was farming up a storm.
Kind of across the board, that looked like comfort for a Flying Oyster squad. And we talked about how both of these teams would generally be happy playing for late and looking for those team fights, but especially when your Kai'Sa gets that double kill early on. I mean, you're just like, can't wait for those team fights to come. We're going to run over you.
And that was the big thing for me, was like curious to see how CFO would manage in the individual lanes to get those leads. And I mean, we saw it there, Shunn immediately getting that lead that then they could try and play through.
An absolutely hot start for the Flying Oyster. Now on the other side of the break, the face of evil fights against the best of the LPL in JDG. We'll see you right back here to preview that one in a moment.
Looking, coming.
This looks good.
Look front, look front.
1 HP, 1 HP.
Viego. Nice, IV here. Yeah, looking.
Take my
Already good.
Abbedagge forced to run for his life now. Baron's been interrupted. Rest is trying to end 100 Thieves' world. There is too much damage, too much chase, and Flying Oyster kill 100 Thieves.